What's up, everybody? Welcome to Eastern Current. This is episode 28. It's actually just a pre-recorded episode since we're recording it the week before Christmas, the Tuesday of Christmas week. We're obviously not going to do one. That's Christmas Eve. And then the following Tuesday is New Year's Eve. And so we decided to pre-record one episode to give to y'all as a little Christmas present from Eastern Current to you. We hope you enjoy it. We've got our good buddies Ryan and Ben on from Intercoastal Angler. They're just already laughing. I know this is going to be a fun show.
The Christmas present everyone was hoping for.
Exactly. It's the big one. Too big to wrap. But yeah, we're going to be talking about wintertime tackle and tackle and tactics and whatnot. So these are two tackle gurus here. They know everything about tackle. They know every number code for every MirrOlure. Is that Arlen?
That's Arlen. That's definitely Arlen. You're definitely talking us up way too much.
So,
you got the B team.
We got the B team. It's all we could get. We didn't have enough to afford Arlen. So we got Ben and Ryan here, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. Here we go. I can't do it both at the same time. Here's Ryan. Here's Ryan Christoffersen.
Hi, I'm Red.
This is my good friend Ren. And then here's Ben.
What's going on?
So, and then here's Cameron. What's up, Cameron?
Not too much.
Is your wife mad yet about Eastern Current? I've got you over here two nights in one week.
Not yet. Yeah, I think she's anytime I'm out of the house, I think she enjoys her time.
Oh, nice.
She was just in the shop buying you some Christmas stuff, and she said,
Mama.
She said, you going over Judd's? She didn't seem too upset. So.
Yeah, no.
Right on.
I'm sure you led her in the right direction.
I did. No, you got some pretty bad stuff.
You should buy him this. He wants some Marlin plugs.
Yeah, they work great on Redfish.
That's
Whoop,
right.
whoop. All right, so I'm going to jump in and do the sponsors real quick. Here we go. Come on up. There we go. All right, we got Ice Strike Fishing. Dave and Ralph over at Ice Strike, awesome dudes. They've got some incredible products, and I fish their jig heads pretty much exclusively. Sea-Tow. If you hit a sandbar, you better have Sea-Tow, you idiot. And then AFCO, great clothing company, as well as Marshwear. Thorpe Creative is Billy's company. If you need any hats or shirts or anything like that, print it up. Hit him up. Eastern Angling's my guide business. CT Custom Lures, awesome dude, makes awesome lures, flies and baits. And then KBT Realty is Billy's Realty Group, which I'm gonna keep pushing Billy's stuff because it's on here. So, but yeah, so we are excited about tonight's show. Yeah, I think y'all will probably get this on New Year's Eve. So don't make any New Year's Eve plans. Y'all should sit down and listen to Eastern Current or watch Eastern Current. Or you could do it, in the following days to come after the New Year. So we hope you had a great Christmas, and here we go. So, Cameron, you got any? You kind of want to start off with the questions for everybody?
Do you guys go fishing today?
Unfortunately, no. I didn't have to work.
What is your excuse? I was at work, so you had no excuse. Were you just lazy?
No, I actually was not lazy today, which is common among me. But no, today I had a lot to do to get ready for Christmas, so I got all my last-minute stuff done.
I invited you to go fishing.
I know, and I told you I couldn't go because I had stuff to do.
I think
Responsibility.
Landon went with Judd.
Yeah. So I was fishing a creek by myself, and I get a picture, and it was like, I see you, and it was, and that's like probably the fifth time Landon's done that to me because he'll always be working on houses right there, and we're texting for a little bit, and I caught a fish, and he was like, nice fish, because I guess he could see me holding it in the boat. And I was like, hey, you want to come catch one? So I ran over and picked him up. He left the job site and jumped on the boat and came over and fished with me for a minute.
Yeah, he said he went on a charter and said he didn't catch anything.
He didn't pay me anything.
Okay. He shouldn't have expected much.
I was frustrated, man. I've been getting nobody's been paying me lately. But no, yeah, that was fun. That was fun. So I guess I was on the fish today. You didn't fish today, did you?
No, work.
Dang,
unfortunately.
Man. Yeah. You got to play more.
It's the worst.
Well, yeah. Let's kind of just dive into it. We'll have a fun time with this one. It's not too serious, but I kind of just want people from this episode to, if they don't have, or maybe this time of year I get a little confused on the water. Like, what do I need to throw? Like today, I saw a bunch of trout, was throwing different baits to them, and they weren't eating it. Or I was sitting, back from a deep hole, throwing all these different baits into it, retrieving them different ways, and I'd be like, all right, there's no fish in there, and I'd trolling motor across it, and there'd be like 30 fish sitting in there that didn't eat anything. So just having some more, some different lures and some different tactics in your belt under your belt for this winter can be pretty important. That was very rambling, but let's get it started, Cameron.
Yeah. I think a good first thing to talk about is just real basic. This time of year, when you're going out on the water, What are the basic things in your tackle box?
Well, I think like what Judd said, this time of year can be very tough. I think the key things to do are go natural and go light. All natural. And go light and slow. So I'm going to use some baits I can work slow, like MR17s, and I'm going to use some natural baits as well, like some gulps, or that's not, gulps are not natural.
Gulps are all natural.
I was skipping on to my next thought, but more something like a voodoo shrimp or something like that.
Yeah. Real realistic looking.
Yeah,
Exactly.
natural colors,
Yeah.
something you can work slow. I'm sure Ryan agrees.
Because
Yeah,
the water is generally clear.
Well, yeah, it's definitely going to be way clear. So they can see better, and they're also going to be way more lethargic with that colder water.
Yeah,
So I think mostly
You have to give them something that they won't hesitate with. I think it's like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Something that it looks natural enough and is moving in the right way that they're willing to eat it. If it looks at all off this time of year, I think it's a lot harder to get a bite.
Yeah, it's not like the fall where you can
No.
throw kind of anything at them and get some bites.
Yeah, you got to think those fish are so cold sitting down there. They're not.
Yeah.
You don't want to move very far.
Yeah.
And for something that you don't think is very appetizing, if you're pretty cold.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just like if you're in bed and you don't want to get out when it's super cold, you're nice and cozy. And you're not trying
If
to
someone
move
offers
much.
you like a steak, you might get up.
I might.
And it just so happens to float by my face. Oh, I don't have to reach that far.
That's important too, is covering water, I think, and like meticulously covering it.
Yeah, working super slow.
I mean, because you're gonna have to work for those fish no matter what. But if you fan cast a spot with 5 casts, you have your little angles that you worked. Those angles in between that could have been your bite.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: so, like, if you went a day before and you had a spot that produced like 10 trout, and then you go back there the next day and you're throwing same tide, same current, and you're not catching anything, how often are you going to change up like your direction of cast? I guess how hard are you going to work that
situation?
area?
I guess for me it depends on. I mean, I'm always going to give a spot like that time. If I caught him there yesterday,
Especially this time of year when your spots are less, I'd say, more few and far between.
Yeah.
So these fish aren't spread out. They're more secluded in one area. Like Judd said, he's got a spot where he knows some fish are, especially see some good fish. I'm probably going to hit that spot a little harder, work it longer, switch up my baits, especially if I know there's some fish there and I caught them yesterday. Give it a while longer.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
I was saying it seems like this time of year too. Once the water hits like a certain threshold, it's like typically like early trout season. It's like those cooler days are the better days,
Yes.
and then this time of year, it's like those warming trend days are the better bites.
You're looking for those
and
warm
so you've
days.
got to switch up your thought process. Of when you're fishing.
I mean, something that I've always thought about is like those fish. Once it gets, I mean, I do a lot of nighttime fishing. This time of year, it becomes less effective.
Yeah.
I think that having the sun on their back for a good period of time, letting them get comfortable and get warmed up, makes it like late afternoon on a day that it might get up to 60 when it was 40 the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Might be a better option than like, not that you can't catch a fish on a 40-degree day in high 40s water. They're definitely there. It's just it's harder to get a bite.
They get picky.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember last year, I think it was coming in right off winter into spring. Jamie was coming to the shop all the time saying he had some fish he was seeing all the time and having a hard time getting to eat. And then we had those couple warm days, and he went in there and he came in the shop and waited. I think it was like a 5 and a 6. Yeah, he's right there where he said saw him, but it was a couple consecutive warm days.
Yeah.
So that's all I needed.
Yeah.
Right there in that one spot.
Ryan, you told me something interesting a while ago, and it was the frequency that big trout eat.
Yeah, and that's something that I've been told, and I've read about it before, that those big trout, they're really looking for a big meal, and especially when they have their feed bags on in general. I don't know if that applies as much this time of year.
I don't think it does, man.
This time of year, I don't think it does, because I think that downsizing, and you'll hear a lot of people talk about downsizing in cold water can be huge. Like, switching to something that's an easy meal and putting it in their face, and that's why I think making a lot of casts, like I said earlier, in those spots that that there's fish in. Like you were talking about, like you went there yesterday. There was fish there. I don't think that fish move large, vast distances this time of year. I think they find places that they're comfortable, that has bait in it a lot of times. I mean, I also see this time of year that, like, something that I haven't really gotten to do as much, but I've noticed the last couple of years that places that don't have a lot of current, they don't have to work. They can just kind of chill.
That's very true. That's like why you find a lot of fish in your deeper holes and marinas.
Boat basins, yeah.
Boat basins, definitely.
I'm going to the marina.
Going to the marina is basically where you need to go. Be successful, and a lot of times this time of year.
Yep, fishing slow.
Fishing slow.
What do y'all think it's more important? Oh, all right, this is a better way to look at it. If you're on some trout, you know there's fish there, you're having a really hard time getting them to eat, and I know you can do both, but would you rather be throwing something really realistic or something with scent? Like, do you think there's this time of year?
I think both.
Yeah, I was going to say, definitely. I have the ability to do both, so I'm going to do both. I'm not going to do one or the other.
Take, something that I trust in those waters and cover it in Procure.
Yeah.
That's why, like,
let's grab some stuff.
Real serious trout fishermen, they'll have, like, 8 rods.
Oh, yeah.
All rigged up with a different.
You know what's funny is, we said earlier, your wife was in the shop asking, I don't get it. Why he's got these rods at the house. I don't understand. I said, well, we need more rods. I said, we're going to have 6 to 8 rods tied on the boat with different lures. We don't want to retie. We want to sit there on the spot and have our go-tos tied up.
You never know what's going to work.
Yeah,
exactly.
And you don't want to have to retie every time.
Yeah, whenever you fish on someone else's boat, I'm like, I don't want to bring more than 3 or 4 rods. Like,
Doug,
I want 7.
Doug always texts me and says, "What's my rod limit today?"
Well, it's like I used to tell people. I used to tell you when I had my little skiff, 3 you're allowed 3 rods.
Yeah, but you want more.
You want more. I wanted more.
Well, I think it's just so nice, especially like redfish. You can pretty much throw anything to them, but trout fishing, like. You could be sitting on a spot and being able to just quickly change through 3 or 4 of your confidence baits and know if there's a fish in there before you get all crazy is key, I think. Mm-hmm. So, let's jump into the next question. I'm about to rip all these cords out of the ground here.
We spoke a little bit about the types of baits we use, but what about go-to colors? I mean, you mentioned natural, but I also feel like, you got some chartreuse there. You got
chartreuse always works.
Yeah, well, that chartreuse one is a little different. I was looking for some little fishies, and this is just the first bag I saw. I don't think that'd be my go-to personally.
Do you like the blue and white?
Yeah, blue and white. I would consider more of a natural color. Greenbacks, pinks, whites. You see, I grabbed some mirror lures here. A lot of blue broken glass sides. Like this guy right here, custom 17s. Shout out to Jot. Got the Jot custom 17, pink back, silver sides.
Jot said something the other night, or I guess it was 2 nights ago we were doing his show, but he was saying that he likes in clear water to fish brighter colors, which is like something that you hear people have, like either they really want to throw something supernatural or they want to throw something real bright.
I've heard both sides of that story, and I've seen both work.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times when people like, I think that it's one of those things that you can't pigeonhole yourself or say that this is the only thing that works. We working at the tackle shop, we get people come in all the time. They're like, this is the only thing they'd bite, and we always laugh because 99% of the time I know that that's not true. Like there's certain things that do work in situations, and I have had bites that like that's the color grub, and I always keep oddball bright stuff in my bag. Like I've seen it
always. You always got an off the wall color.
Yeah,
sometimes you go do that.
Exactly.
Which I don't know if that necessarily applies more to cold water stuff.
No, I don't know if it does, but I think it's important to have.
Yeah, you never know. You reach deep in your bag when you know there's some fish there, and sometimes the ones you never use.
I can think of one night specifically that me and Andrew, who works at the shop with me, were fishing a spot that we had been catching fish in, and we just could not get a bite. And I pulled out the ugliest grub I've ever seen in my life that I bought because it was ugly. And it was the only bite I got that night, and it was a 4.5 pound trout. It was a nice trout. It was the only bite I got, and I had swung 7 other color grubs through that spot.
Yeah.
And that one made him.
It's funny,
it's
funny what people, the different little confidence. What would the word be? Just things that people do for confidence. Like my buddy Adam, literally he has one tarpon hook he wants to fish. But the tarpon hook only comes. He ties all his flies on it. And so
Yeah.
Tarpon hook only comes. I forget which one it is, but it's a little shiny, and he doesn't like that it's shiny. So he literally sits there, puts the thing in its vise, and burns it for like 5 minutes, and gets all the shininess off of it. Every single fly that he ties for tarpon, and then ties his fly on that. He's like, "Oh yeah, I 100% get more bites than the ones that aren't shiny." I'm like, "How do you know? How do you know
That's
that?"
like Arlen. He's on his Sea Mullet World Tour in the surf, and he's got there's a Mewtwo owner circle hook he likes to use, but it's red. So he's been taking the grinder to it and grinding all the paint off of it, and underneath it's gold. He swears it gets more bites.
Really?
Yeah.
From
And Arlen's
I get it for tarpon, but mullet. I mean, I like the
I don't know.
dedication.
He's a good mullet fisherman.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that all those intricacies of people's fishing stuff, like your little quirks about stuff, it makes us who we are as fishermen. And it also, some of it is 100% true. Like, if you ask what Arlen's doing there, and I only know this because some of the best mullet fishermen around here, some of them, in particular, a man named Jim Barnes, who passed away about 5 years ago, he would only fish a number 6 gold tail hook, and they don't make a circle hook gold. And that's why Arlen does that thing.
Wow,
it's
that's
because
cool.
it's a circle hook, and you don't have to set it, and they'll eat it, but it's a gold hook. It's as close as you can come to that gold kale hook without fishing a kale hook.
Yeah, yeah.
And it works. It just works.
That's super cool. I mean, I love stuff like that, like little nuances that people figure out that work, and it just shows your passion as an angler.
I think some of those things obviously definitely work, but for me especially, I think confidence in a bait is a huge part of working as a color. When you got a confidence bait, you sit there and you fish that bait hard.
I mean, how many times have you tied on a lure that you don't have confidence in for 5 casts and be like, screw this thing and cut it off? Yeah. Because you're like, you in your head, you know it should work, but 5 casts is all it takes for me most of the time. That I'm like, done with it.
I do that with mirror lures all the time.
Oh, yeah. I'll be, especially like on a slow day, I'll be fishing, and then I'm like, I'm going to try a mirror lure. Like, I've fished grubs, I've fished topwater, I fished all these things, and I put a mirror lure on, and I throw it like once, and if I don't get bit on, I'm like, oh yeah, the mirror lure is not going to work, and
it's not the day. It's just not.
But then when they're eating it, like I love fishing a mirror lure, but like if I'm not getting bit, I hate it. So sorry for that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Ryan, you said something that I liked about quirks, and I just want to ask this question: like, what would y'all say that start with Ryan, your little nuance or your fishing quirk is? If Hannah heard me say that word, she hates that word.
It's a hard question.
I think
Ben
you'd
would
have to
probably
ask.
answer.
I think for that question, you'd probably have to ask a
Someone
fishing
else.
buddy that you fish with.
All right, Ben. What is Ryan's quirk?
Ryan's quirk. I don't know.
Fishing quirk. I think here's one. This isn't your quirk, but
having one really ugly bait.
It's important. I'll stand by that one.
I think that one thing that stood out to me is, and you could have just been saying this to sound cool, but I believe that this was the truth, and it was your big topwaters, your big spooks that you like to fish that have the 3 hooks. You're like, I like to take the middle hook off and leave the split ring because that split ring adds a little bit of extra noise to it.
Yeah, and that drives Ben crazy. You're like, why do you
I
leave
do the
that
same
on?
thing with the super spook, but I take that thing off.
I leave it on there.
Yeah,
for some
it takes
reason.
right off when I catch fish just fine.
I know. And I don't claim it to be a thing. I just always have left it on.
I wonder what Ben's is. I don't know. I'll have to think on this. Cameron, can you think of what yours is?
I know.
No, I think the only thing that I do that might be a little bit different is I take you
don't wear pants when you fish, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I got something I think that people make fun of me, especially Andrew's made fun of me lately of. I got a hook set from hell. I like to swing really hard, Bill Dance style.
Too many bass videos on your
I don't know.
I personally watched him throw his neck out for
I
like
did.
3 days.
Yeah,
on a hook set.
it was longer than that. It was like 3 weeks. Remember, it was right before Striper Fest fishing with Judd that year. I set the hook on a striper and popped my neck, and it was locked up for 3 weeks. I swear to you.
You don't have to use your neck when you set the hook.
Oh, dude, it's all body.
You dip the head in
I think he jumped.
You step back, rip lips.
Cross their eyes, son.
Cross their eyes, Bo. You got to do it.
Yeah.
Some fish, I think, like for stripers, it helps. But sometimes with the trout, I think it hurts me. But I can't help it.
Had him.
Here's his lips.
His lips are gone.
What about you, Cam? You had something, didn't you?
I mean, it's just like a little thing I do with topwaters, my redfish topwaters. I don't even know what they're called, but I get them from y'all's shop. They're treble hooks, but on the one hook is extended. It's a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure sets, VMC sure sets.
Yeah.
I think they quit making
They
those.
did.
You're going to have to find a new thing.
You have to find new cords. You can
We'll start making them out of wood.
just take
Wooden
off the
hooks.
hooks and just leave the split rings.
Yeah, because that makes sense.
I think
That's
my
out of laziness,
quirk is,
maybe?
Yeah, that might be going to what you originally talked about.
Might be laziness.
I think the only weird. It's not even that weird, but I put gulp juice in my mouth every time when I go fishing. So
I heard it kills some germs.
it does kill germs, yeah. And then you're breathing out, fish smell. I think it helps out.
Did you get that from Jot?
No, I can't say how I got it from. But
Secret.
Yeah, you got any more questions ready to fire off there, Karen?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think while we're still talking about baits, if you could just choose one for redfish and trout this time of year, what would you take?
One total or one for
One
each?
for each?
Well, yeah. Sorry, one for each.
I'm going
that's
to
a
go
great
with,
question.
for my reds, it's the only time of year I will really fish it. And I think Ryan's going to agree with me. Is probably some sort of gulp, probably gulp shrimp, gulp pearl white shrimp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pearl white, 3-inch,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah,
I'd
3
probably
inch.
go
I got the
smaller
4 inch
shrimp.
here, but probably 3 inch.
Either that or natural shrimp, like a molting or a natural on a light jig head. I think would. I mean, you're gonna get bites on it.
Yeah.
If
That
they're
or-
there, they're gonna eat it.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I don't. And like he said, neither one of us ever fish gulp
Yeah, I fish gulp for
at all.
flounder or
Yeah.
reds. In the
I do like
winter.
a gulp for flounder. That you kind of can't beat the 6-inch jerk shad for a flounder. If it just sucks getting your tails bit off by pinfish all summer.
I kind of like gulp in dirty water.
Gulp and
I mean, it makes
do
sense.
too.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Adding that extra
But yeah,
scent.
I mean, winter too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
I just got tired of getting them bit in half all the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
and
Yeah, I just
spending
can't
money
fish them in
on
the
them.
summer.
yeah, you gotta be willing to be hooking a bunch of trash fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about this time of year is there's really not any junk
Yeah,
that's going to eat
right.
it. You
And
can
most
get away
time
with
when you're throwing those gulps and
Yeah.
you're throwing into maybe a school of fish, hopefully.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
crazy because how many different baits there are out there that I've left behind over the years. Stuff that I fished hard for years that I don't fish anymore. I think about it a lot, and I think that a lot of it is because companies like Z-Man have matched some of them so well. Like for the longest time, I didn't have I don't like the Z-Man minnows, like the regular small minnow. I don't think it's got as much thump as like a
diesel.
no, yes, but that's what I was going to get to is that the saltwater
Just the
assassins were my thing forever
Gotcha.
because there's just a different thump to that. You can feel that thing in your rod tip.
Yeah, you don't fish saltwater assassins too much anymore.
I don't, but that's because that diesel minnow has that thump that I wanted out of the minnows. Like it just that's another bait, but
What do you mean by thump?
they're paddle tail baits.
Thump.
Oh,
You can
like
feel it in
feel
your
it
when you're just reeling it.
vibrating.
You can feel that
Yeah.
thump of the tail. It has that.
And it gets that thump, too.
It does. It does. And I fished saltwater assassins a lot more this year because of it. Like I thought about it. And I was like, those things catch fish. Why did I stop fishing them?
Do you think that pertains to what we were talking about with the cold water fishing though, as much? I mean,
That
because for me, I like a
Yeah.
slower moving. So.
yeah. I just want something that's going to move easily without as much action imparted by me.
Yeah.
I think that fishing something that's got movement at a slow rate of speed and those Z-Mens do it.
Yeah, I think-
they really do.
So is
I
this
mean,
for
even
trout
just-
now? We talking trout?
I think that this
anything.
applies to both.
Yeah, I think we
it
might have
applies
just
to both.
merged just a hair into the trout there.
Yeah, sorry about that, but I think it applies to both.
No,
I
I'm
like
with you.
a shrimp on a Carolina rig for my.
Cut shrimp.
It's the other thing you can get away with this time of year. is
Yeah.
Shrimp on a Carolina.
Yeah.
And I think that
Absolutely.
people that brings up a good point though is that people who become so such purists about fishing. Like I love, and Ben will agree with me 100%. I love going and fishing docks this time of year with cut
yeah.
bait and cut shrimp and getting pulls
solid.
on something. It is fun.
It's a lot of fun.
I think that anyone that neglects that, you're missing out on part of why we do this.
We talked the other day. A little
yeah,
bit. We
love it.
did some meat
I had a
fishing.
blast.
Some shrimp.
Yeah. one
fun to
thing
switch it up.
that I wanted to jump into when you were talking, and we'll get back to that initial question, but talking about paddle tails, and I think more times, like this time of year, adjusting, I know this sounds crazy, and it maybe is even too in depth, but adjusting what type of paddle tail you're fishing, especially for trout. I don't think it really matters for redfish, but can change the outcome. Like those Z-Man diesel minnows, I love because they've got that real flat paddle, like the back of their tail, so it wags like really wide. Mm-hmm. But you can change to where you're fishing something that's got like little tighter kicks or wider. I mean, there's all kinds of different baits that swim different ways, and I really do think that changing between those sometimes, like if you know there's fish there, play around. If it's like it's going to get harder and harder to catch fish, so play around with like if
Man, I think if you're overlooking any of those intricacies, you're messing up.
Yeah.
Like, and we can't do it every day on the water. Like there's days that you don't think about enough that you may think about later, and you're like, I should have done this, I should have done that. But I mean, you look at what these guys, like guys that pit fish bass tournaments and stuff, like they talk about some of the most intricate little changes to things that make huge differences for them. Like, and the fact, I don't think that a lot of saltwater guys do it as much. And I think taking, tips and just little tricks from everywhere you can get them from is important.
For sure. And I think that, for bass guys, the reason they've dove so hard into it is because a lot of times those fish are so pressured, so heavily pressured. Yeah, the money. But these saltwater fish, they're not as pressured, but they're getting more and more pressured now. Like fish are getting
especially
tougher
where we
and tougher
live.
to
I mean,
catch,
Wrightsville Beach has got to have some of the most pressure in North Carolina.
Well, especially this time of year when you've got
especially
only a handful of
flounders
schools,
closed.
and they get out pretty quick.
Yeah.
They get leaked.
Yeah,
And then they get pounded.
yeah.
Leaked and pounded.
Leaked and pounded.
There's no doubt.
There's no doubt. But I guess we can get back into the initial question. We'll see how far away we get from that.
Yeah.
Right, so we got gulp shrimp for redfish.
Yeah, probably.
If you
I
had
think
to
I'd agree
choose
with that one.
Yeah.
What would you choose for trout?
I'll let Ryan go that one first.
This time of year, something with a paddle tail that I can drag on the bottom. And by dragging, I literally mean that. Like, with a lot of baits, a lot of times you're hopping them, doing this, that, and the other thing, and getting bites because you're getting reaction bites where, I mean, I know that when that water gets cold, that I've caught trout on baits that I know are dragging on their side across the bottom. They're not even fishing the way they should be fished, the way they were meant to be fished, I guess, is a better statement. I think that things like I said, especially, and that's what I like about Z-Man stuff too, is that if you pause that stuff, especially on certain rigged a certain way, a really light jig head, stuff like that stuff floats. So when you stop
Especially a Z-Man.
when you stop that thing's tail will stand up and move.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times that's the difference between a bite and not a bite, because if you stop, something that's made from a traditional soft plastic, it just lays on the bottom. It doesn't move.
What's the longest you think you've stopped a bait and let it sit there and a trout's eating it afterwards?
A couple seconds. I don't think it's like anything major.
For me, I agree with you, but it kind of takes me back. I used to do a lot more bass fishing, especially this colder months. When you're fishing jigs, I mean, you're sitting there doing like a 15 count.
Yeah,
in between,
absolutely.
Between your hops.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I don't do that enough with the trout fishing.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't do it enough either. Because I still like to bass fish in the winter. It's kind of what I usually change over to sometime around this time of year. And it's not like I learned this stuff on my own 100%. I do spend a lot of time researching, stuff when I want to learn how to do it. Yeah. And a lot of bass fishermen will talk about cadence with a jig, where you're talking about like they have like a very specific cadence where they'll let a jig hit the bottom, they hop it once and let it sit, and then drag it a foot, and then let it sit, hop it, drag it a foot, and let it sit, and that the time in between those can vary vastly in water temperatures. Yeah. But there's guys, like he was just saying, that'll literally let a jig sit for 15, 20 seconds before they move it.
I just said that I did that.
Yeah, that's why I said.
Slow jig bend.
Yeah. And I think that like stuff like that could be a major difference in in the way we fish.
Yeah, I think that's interesting to think about because I feel like I get so set in my ways with how I work certain baits that I'm like,
If they're not biting it this way.
Yeah, if they're not biting it this way, there's no fish here. But like, that's a good point. I mean, dragging it on the bottom, letting it sit for a little bit, try jigging it faster, try working it slower, try everything until you figure out the cadence that they want. I guess.
It's like what Ryan said a little while ago. You got to think about every single one of those variables. That water temperature being so cold. We talked about not wanting getting out of bed. Mm-hmm. And then you got maybe sometimes, if I'm moving it this way, I'm not getting any bites. Why not? What are they doing? How do they want it? Mm-hmm. Maybe they're too cold. Should I slow down? It reminds me of what Judd said. You mentioned Adam DeBruin earlier.
Yeah.
I think he said something to me a couple of years ago in Louisiana. He likes to sit there and think about the fish when he's throwing a lure and kind of visualize what that lure's doing, visualize what those fish are doing, and you can kind of play that into this time of year when they're sitting there so cold and kind of think about it.
And he says that about popping cork, too, which is the best thing.
No. Well, now it just ruined the whole throw that out the window.
No, but it's crazy, man. He'll be like, I like the, 3 big pops right off the bat. Or no. He likes to throw it and then like a little pop first in case there's a fish close. And then if it doesn't get eaten, pop, 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 like 3 big pops. And then the fish is coming in. He's like, and then, all right, now the fish is at 10 feet. I'll pop it a little softer. Now the fish is, and so many times he's done that, though, and be like, oh, there he is, like as he's talking to you through it.
I think that you just proved that he's right.
He's so right.
You're switching it up. I mean, it's like what we were talking about earlier. You're doing one certain thing.
It's crazy to expect something of a fish that we don't know what they're thinking without like delving into that stuff and truly trying to because the thing about it is, and I know that anyone here will probably agree with me, when you find it keeps happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes they just don't bite.
Yeah, well, that's 100% true. But like, if you're having a tough time, I know for a fact that I've gotten to a point in a day or night of fishing where like I figured something out that's what they want.
Oh, situation. Like that's what going through your bait. That's why you're going. You got 8 rods tied up.
Yeah.
You're going
and
through.
Then all of a sudden,
out they want to eat.
You're
this.
like, oh damn, that's how they want it, and they want that bait that
works
way.
that way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
I think with trout more than anything, you figure that out.
Yeah.
But also with redfish this time of year,
yeah.
like especially when it gets like in the summer when they're real fired up, you move something in front of them, they're probably going to eat it.
I'll go back to this one story Ryan and I tell all the time. It just happened to be that we were together. We had a school of fish coming down the bank, very shallow water, backs out, blowing shrimp up out of the water. Couldn't get them to eat anything. They were so fired up. They were so keyed in on those shrimp. Even shrimp patterns, they were so keyed in on those live shrimp in front of their face. And I think Ryan ended up getting a couple. We caught one fish.
Yeah, caught one rat out of the school.
Blowing stuff up. It could be we're just awful, but
no, I'm with you. I think when they get keyed in on something, especially
we just
shrimp,
didn't have the right
redfish and shrimp.
It was little shrimp. They were popping shrimp out.
I can't tell you how many times even you and we've sat there and like seen fish blowing stuff up, and you start throwing topwaters to them.
Remember that one time we were in the creeks and I was throwing the larger skitterwalk. You were pulling me, and we were watching them pop mullets at my feet, and we couldn't get them to eat that full size skitterwalk. And then I think you might have said, let's try changing that Spook Junior, smaller bait, and they started crushing that thing.
Do you remember that time this just reminded me of that time that do you know what I'm talking about? With the top water. Was that you threw it out there?
That was Tommy.
Oh, yeah.
Tommy threw it out there, and of course, being the angler that he is.
Prestigious.
Yes. I think he had quite a mess going on, and as he was untangling his mess, topwater sitting there, and the thing got smoked.
It had been sitting there for like 20 seconds, maybe longer.
Yeah, at least. Dead still.
And it
wouldn't touch it, still
crushed
undoing his not even moving. So that goes against everything we're talking about.
Redfish
Don't listen
weird.
to us at all.
Yeah. Well, that's the cool thing is like as soon as you really think you figure something out, like, all right, a redfish is not going to need a topwater that's set there for 30 seconds. Well, they'll do some crazy something that you're like, all right.
That's what makes it cool.
That's what makes it so awesome. Yeah, it keeps the wheels turning.
It's just topwater fishing in general. I was always taught from like day one when I first started fishing down here for reds and trout or whatever it was. I was always taught you walk that topwater until you come tight. And I've caught more trout on top this year on pauses, like long pauses, than I ever have before because I started doing it.
Well, especially after their first, first swipe at it.
Letting that
I
thing
walk it a couple
sit there.
more. I walk it 1 or 2 more times and then just sit it there.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, maybe one more twitch and they're on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And that's something that I was apparently not doing right for a long time.
Yeah.
So on the topic of hard baits, why are MR17 so hard to fish?
I don't know. We were talking about that
Can
earlier.
you explain this
Help
to
me.
us?
I don't know,
Fish.
a lot of people, Ryan and I were discussing earlier, come in the shop and I guess they're discouraged by them. I think they're intimidated, maybe the better word, or maybe it's just not knowing how to work them. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it
know.
has to do with, personally, the way I see it is that people can't feel them through their whole entire cast.
Yeah,
They
that
don't
might be
have, they feel like they're not in control. And
Yes.
and
well put.
a lot of it, I think, is that people, especially inexperienced anglers, and I don't want people to take this the wrong way, but like, I think that inexperienced anglers, one of their biggest downfalls is line management. And you have to be good at line management to fish a 17 correctly.
sure.
Having your slack bow out, having a direct connection without actually moving the plug. That's why I think a lot of people say that trout bite mirror lures so light, and I don't think that they do. I think that they hammer them. It's that they have
sometimes.
too much wind bow and stuff,
Yeah.
and they're not feeling the bite right.
I think it happens a lot with the light shrimp people fish too.
Yeah,
That
I think,
same
and I
line
think a
management.
lot of that is knowing that you have a direct line from your rod tip to your lure, and keeping your rod tip down will change a lot of that. Those are two simple tips that I think
I think you kind of nailed that on the head.
will help a lot of people fish them.
Yeah.
We were talking about cadence and how you change it up and how it's different in different situations, but just give us the basic overview of how you work MR17.
Yeah, that's good.
Because like
The different ways, like all the different ways you can.
yeah,
work
because
on.
I've always heard it's twitch, pause for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways you could work on.
I've caught fish on a 17 like flat out twitching it and barely ever stopping in between, and that's when they're fired up and they're in shallow water. But like a 17 sinks really slow. So if you're fishing deeper stuff, you're gonna have to let it sink for 10, 15 seconds sometimes.
Yeah.
And this time of year, your twitches are going to be way less aggressive. Like, you got to realize when you move your rod tip, that's how far that lure moves. You can move a lure 8 feet in a twitch if you're doing this. Mm-hmm. If you're just doing that and moving it 5 inches, it's basically staying in the same place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, especially this time of year where
Yeah.
maybe in the fall I might be twitching, doing a 1-2 twitch, way more aggressively, less seconds in between my pauses or less seconds with my pauses. This time of year, especially my deeper water, I'm going to be throwing out, letting it sink anywhere from or pausing for 5 to sometimes 12 to 13 seconds and just one twitch.
Yeah. And just like I said,
Just
short.
trying to keep it in that zone. You know, that bait's lethargic too. It's not, those fish can be chasing any bait that's moving real fast.
Watch your schools of bait this time of year.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I was about to say.
a school of pogies will sit in one place. They're not like going down a bank.
And they'll
like,
spread out more this time of year.
They're
the
just
pogies.
kind of
They won't
sitting
sit as
there
tight. They'll spread way
doing
out.
pogie things like in one spot.
Pogo
like,
stick.
They don't move a whole large distance over. It takes them a long time to get places, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. It's I will say this about that mirror lure this time of year when you do have to fish it so slowly. It's very defeating feeling when you're not getting a bite. Like you
Absolutely.
twitch it, you're sitting there. You're like, all right, then what am I doing? But then when you finally get a bite on it, you're like, oh shoot, I just waited 15 seconds, and then you start to figure out like, all right,
And they'll take it away from you when you do that.
Yeah.
Like you'll know you got bit, even in the colder water.
Now, when in that, all right, talk about that slow retrieve on a mirror lure. When do you feel like most likely that bite is going to come? Like, is it right after the twitch? Is it right before you move it again, or is there a time in that when they're feeding slow?
I think a
That's a
lot
hard
of it's in
question.
I feel like it's after my twitch and pause. I mean,
It's hard to
it could
think
be
about.
this time of year. You know, it could be sitting there just
I
right
feel
in
like
the middle of that pause. Yeah, just
I feel like a lot of my bites this time of year on it are late in that pause. I feel like it's just sitting there, and I'm like,
about to twitch it again.
Yeah, and you might, like I said, I do a lot of stuff where I'm just like barely moving it.
Yeah.
Where like I've let it flat pause for 8-10 seconds, and it's just like the slightest little movement and I really feel like those fish, just like bass do with like a jerk bait, where they nose up on it and they're looking at it. Like they're not sure, but that slight just turn of that bait or roll of that bait is enough to get them to eat.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that like with slowing down doesn't mean doing the same thing that you do in the early fall slower. It means like I think a lot of it is you gotta, everything's smaller. Like
yeah.
You're not hopping
smaller.
a jig 5 feet off the bottom. You're just kind of barely getting it to just get some kind of movement to it, and then swimming it for a little while. Or same thing with a mirrorlure, where you're
Working
just
it slow, man.
Yeah, well, slow, but like smaller, like
Yeah, less
A
aggressive.
tighter movement.
less aggressive is a perfect way to explain it.
Okay. So would y'all? What was the original question we were just talking about here?
We were originally talking about which
Why
our
are
favorite baits were.
MR-17
No,
so hard to fish?
And then how would you work a mirror lure?
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Cameron's last question this
Okay.
time of year.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. Would you rather? You were saying you'd rather fish a soft plastic, right? This time of year than a mirror lure.
I think so.
You the same way, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on where you're fishing, but probably overall, probably
Soft
a soft plastic's creeping it, like I said, with that bass jig style, barely moving it.
I'm gonna fish whatever gets my first bite because I'm rifling through baits.
Right.
Yeah, but your probably go-to bait's probably, like you said, that soft plastic.
Yeah.
Will y'all still throw topwater this time of year?
I don't, and I know that there's been, like me and you have talked about it
Yeah.
because of Ray's podcast and stuff.
Yeah. That's
I
crazy.
don't.
He showed me the spot where that was the day when I was fishing with him. He was like, "Remember when I was telling you about that guy breaking the ice with the topwater?" It was like, it was right here, and I was like, "I know where I'm coming next time there's ice on the water." So much fun
It's
to
the
catch up.
craziest thing to me. Like, but it makes sense because what he's talking about, I bet you it wasn't more than like 4 feet of water, 5 feet of water.
Yeah,
that-
it was. Yeah, it was shallow. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think, and me and Ray have talked in depth about that whole situation or why that works. And I've never seen it work. I'm not going to claim to, but like what he was saying to me is that it's just like fishing a twitch bait where you're moving it so slow. Like he's talking about that guy is literally twitching that thing once, so it walks once and sits there. And it sits there and sits there, and it walks another, and that fish is just getting closer and closer to that bait over time, that they're not expending a ton of energy to actually eat it.
Yeah.
So it makes sense in my head, but I have zero confidence in it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's one of those things too. Like you said earlier, watch your bait.
Yeah.
Watch what your bait's doing, and also play off how aggressive your fish are. If you're fishing and you've got to fish slow to get your bites, you're not probably going to go to a top water. But if you're throwing a 17 and you're getting way more aggressive bites, you can feel that you can fish a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Then I might, get
You
the
might
balls.
start thinking about it.
Throw
Yeah.
one. We actually did that last month. We were reading 55-degree water at a creek, and we were getting half turns on the reel with a 17. And my buddy Justin, he's like, "I'm gonna try it." We're like, "You're crazy." First cast. Yeah, Andrew and I threw our wire rods in the boat and grabbed our top waters, and it was on.
That's awesome.
I mean, Ray said he caught him on top water 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you got to pick your days, and like Ryan
Yeah.
said, you got to pick your depth of water. If it's a real warm day,
Yeah.
and they're maybe on a muddy bottom, they're warming up quick, and that bait's more aggressive than.
Yeah, I mean,
Why
I think
not?
if you get a string of days that are like in the 50s and 60s,
Yeah.
it might be worth a try.
Yeah.
I'm with you. But yeah, I think don't just go out there, and just
No,
start
it's
with
definitely
it, but
not your go-to, but kind of read your signs.
Read
Yeah.
your signs. That's
Yeah.
huge. So, all right, here's a good question because we got a lot of people that watch this that are like, they don't fish as much as we do, and so they might not have 7 different baits that they're confident in fishing. What is, if you were to tell somebody like one bait, like get good at fishing this time of year, what would it be? You know what I mean? Like one
I'd say-
confidence bait to go and throw.
I said no, you always plug this bait hard, and we at the shop, this is one of our go-tos, a DOA shrimp. It's
Yeah.
a very good
Oh, yeah.
bait to learn to fish because it's a bait you want to fish slow. So it helps you to learn how to fish slow, and you're not doing much. So
Yeah.
and it's a natural bait.
There's lots of colors of those, right?
Oh, there's only one color.
There's only one color. What?
The famous answer.
No, there's only one color.
Only one color.
Yeah.
You have to go into Intercoastal Angler to figure out what that one color is.
I'll tell you.
Okay.
You heard it first here. It's the measles.
Top secret, rightful beach.
There's not like 5 boxes of them on the table right
We didn't
now.
have any more.
A whole
Everyone brought
pallet.
them all.
There's a pallet getting dropped off later.
The measles, clear red flake, ½ ounce is the go-to. Maybe this time of year I might skimp down and go through the 3/4.
Yeah.
Or not the 3/4.
3
the
inch.
quarter.
Yeah.
The quarter.
Now, when
3 inch.
you're working,
Not heavier. Just go heavy. Knock them out and then pick them up once you've knocked them out. They'll float to the top, I promise you.
Oh man. So here's one thing that I've been thinking about lately because I have so much confidence in that shrimp. You were still on camera. Don't do anything stupid over there. I'm just kidding. In that shrimp, but the one thing about that DOA is if you fish it really slow, a lot of times it'll lay over on its side. Which you said it doesn't really matter.
The thing looks stupid.
It looks super stupid.
We always talk about it's a stupid bait.
It's stupid.
I don't
You
know why
what-
it gets
what-
bit.
When it's actually sinking in
It
water
sinks
that isn't
perfect.
clear.
Yeah.
Water that isn't perfectly clear, it looks like a shrimp.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When it's just
like a
doing this in water that isn't super clear, it's like that looks like we've put them in the tank when the tank's dirty with our live shrimp, and the eyes kind of light up the same way. I get why it gets bit, but it's a stick. Like,
Yeah.
it's-
Honestly, this time of year, as you get more in the colder months, shrimp wise, the only time I'd probably ever switch it up. I go something more realistic. I brought one of these chase baits.
Oh, let me put your camera on. There you go.
These things are super realistic. They're
Show
made
the
with
camera.
that
If you hold
10x material.
Oh,
Then
it's
So
not
they're-
the same, but- oh,
but
well.
hold it like near your
You hold it near
microphone
your-
because it's not focusing on it.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Boom.
But no, these things are cool. I started fishing them last year. We got them. They're actually bait out of Australia.
Australia.
So shout out to Chase Bites, but they're cool. And they
the catch.
catch
A little
fish.
shrimp on the bobby, eh?
Shrimp on the
These
bobby.
these look way more realistic than a DOA.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm probably going to go with that and some clear water when they're
It
lethargic.
sinks nice and slow. It's
Yeah, you got to have a light rod to throw them.
That's
Yeah,
why
that's cool.
I really think that the color of the DOA and the way it sinks is what gets the bites because
Yeah.
it doesn't look that great. I mean, like you're saying, in dirty water, it gives that nice resemblance of a
Yeah.
shrimp, like
Yeah.
the.
And
essence
I
of a
think
shrimp.
that a lot of baits are like that, where you're really looking for an outline of a bait, like a profile.
Yeah.
It's not about how realistic that bait looks up close as much as it is about the profile. And that's this time. I think this time of year, like we're trying to talk about cold water stuff, and I think it matters more.
Yeah.
Like because they're gonna get close before they eat it. Like you were talking about those fish that you saw recently, how far they'll follow a bait.
Oh yeah, it was crazy.
And I think that you're not getting as many reactionary bites this time of year. You have to fool those fish into eating, and I think that baits looking more realistic and stuff like that comes into play a lot more.
I think, like you said earlier, I started thinking about the other day, like almost like a bass on a bed. When you're sight fishing a bass,
Yeah.
they're sitting there, and they got that time. They're just sitting there looking at it,
Yeah.
and they got so much time to sit there and think about whether this
Yep.
thing's real, whether I'm going to eat it or not. So
Yeah.
I think that's where you go with something that works slow and natural because you got to really fool them. You're not getting reaction bites, basically.
Me and
what
you've
he's
talked
talking
about
about.
how much time we've spent on a single fish on a bed.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. That you
it's
can
crazy.
go back to a trout in a hole.
yeah.
You know.
Yep, it's true.
The one thing that I noticed and this is why it's so important to change up retrieves this time of year, is when those fish were following a lot, and they were super shallow and clear, and I could see them. When I would stop, I'd just be slow rolling it, like retrieving it, and then when I would stop the bait and let it hit the bottom, that's when they were eating it.
Yeah.
And so, like, I wasn't doing that at first, and then once I saw that the fish was following it and stopped it and he ate it, then I started doing that, and I was getting way more bites. So,
Yeah.
like, changing those retrieves up
Yeah.
is important.
Yeah, super interesting.
And I think like when you're talking about stuff like that, like having a bait on the bottom and just like letting it sit there, but like just kind of not moving it more than a foot out of that area, just kind of almost dragging it
Yeah.
like in a small, like that's how I was getting a lot of my bites the other night on that diesel minnow. Is like I was letting that thing hit the bottom and I was just kind of like crawling it, and then the second I went to like move it again when they thought it was about to leave,
That's when they wanted
Like,
it.
that's when they'd eat it.
And Judd said he's been fishing a diesel minnow.
A
Like
diesel.
that. A diesel minnow
Yeah,
like that.
crawling them.
Crawling.
Yeah, I've fallen in love with that bait. Like all around.
It's a good bait.
It's a good
Yeah,
one.
I'm getting out of here for 1 second.
Oh, I think Ryan has to tinkle.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, you got any more good questions lined up there?
Yeah, no, I think since we covered most of the tackle part of it, let's talk like rods and reels. What's your go-to for
Man,
trout, and what's your go-to for redfish?
I like to fish a lot of the same rods I do for trout and reds. And you can do that when you fish really sensitive stuff, going kind of towards the reds. Like I've got some lammy glasses that I like to fish that I can catch reds on, but they're still light enough I can throw trout stuff on. But to really answer your question, probably this time of year specifically, going back to what we're talking about, fishing light baits, and fishing slow, you want to be able to feel those baits. Like what Ryan was saying earlier with these 17s, you got to be able to feel them. And you're fishing sometimes weedless jerk shads, fishing as light as you can. So a really sensitive rod is key for me.
Yeah.
Light braid, 10 to 15.
Yeah, 10 to 15.
And I like a 7.6 to 7.2 rod, something that you can throw longer distances because you want to sneak up on those fish.
Yeah. So you turned me on to, what was it, that 7.6 Shimano rod?
The GLF rods, yeah. I started fishing that one this year.
awesome.
I love it. It was
That's
made.
the blue one?
Yeah,
Baby blue?
You can feel everything in that thing.
especially the DOA shrimp.
Yeah,
That thing's
man.
awesome.
I bought one of those for my mom for her birthday.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
I remember by the time I got it to her, I was like, I do not want to give this. I want to go buy her a different fishing rod. But I did give it to her. It's yours, Mom. I love you.
How about size reels?
I fish 3,000s the majority of it. You can, I don't think it matters as much. I'm not one of those guys that I want a 1,000 for some trout. A 3,000's your go-to. 2,500 or 3,000 size reels your go-to for inshore fishing.
If someone were going to come in the shop and they wanted to get a light rod, like they didn't have a light rod to throw this little stuff in the winter, and they wanted to do it cheap, what would you recommend?
If you want to maybe be under $100, I'd probably say HMX, GLF rods we were just talking about. Kunan rods, you've got
I love
those.
the
Those are
Kunans,
$40. All
It's a
three
great
of those
rod.
are great.
Yeah, I actually like those things a lot.
Yeah, they're sweet.
I've thrown yours a bunch, and they're also really smooth.
Yeah.
You feel
They don't
feel
have
that
like
thing.
the transition into like a good butt section of that rod. That's the only thing.
No,
It's
it's
like
a
pretty soft
very
to get
old
through.
school, moderate feeling
Yeah.
rod.
Yeah.
I really like those for trout though because it just makes it feel like more of a fight.
Until you hook like a good one, and you're like, golly, like the other day I lost a really nice fish, and I swear if I had a rod with some more
Butt
to it,
What did you hook that? Was that on a diesel minnow also?
That was on a diesel minnow.
On a jig hook?
Yeah, just
Gotcha.
crawling it on the bottom. I think one of the things that's so important about that diesel minnow or the Z-Man, if you're fishing really slow, we were talking about this earlier, is the fact that tail still sticks up. Like,
Yeah. No, I
you
agree,
can drag
100%.
it and that tail's still wagging.
That's I was saying, like with rods. I think matching your rod to your technique is huge.
Yeah.
Like jig hook stuff. I like something that's got more backbone.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna fish a Mural or a 17 or something, I want something more moderate that has a lot of play in it because treble hooks are bad at staying hooked.
Yeah, that's a very important thing for people to realize. Like even topwater fishing in the summer, like you want a soft tip on those topwater rods, not so you can throw it far, but so when that fish starts thrashing and shaking his head, you
have more
skill
play in
to
it.
keep
Much
that.
more give.
Yeah. Especially fishing braid, like there is no give in it, which is I think like why a lot of us talk about fishing longer leaders for that stretch in that situation and a more moderate rod that's got a lot of give, head shake wise and stuff like that.
Yeah. More forgivable.
In the winter, let's talk about leader for a second because I feel like in the winter, what pound do you guys like?
The heaviest monofilament you can get away with. No, I'm just joking.
125 pound.
I fish mostly 12-pound, but if in the wintertime,
12
especially
pounds scares me.
especially for trout, you got some that are being really sketchy and
10
not
pound.
Clear
10
water.
pound. Yeah, I might go to 10, and if that's not working, I might changing all the variables. I might go to 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to just try to figure out we get something to eat.
See, that's one thing I didn't mess around with this morning. Was I fished straight 15 the whole time, fluoro, and maybe I should have jumped.
Yeah, this
dropped
time
it
of year
down.
for me, I 15. For reds, it's way different. I don't.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. But talking trout, obviously 12.
Yeah,
Red's 15.
I fish 12 pretty much across the board. I feel like this time of year for trout, or any time of year.
Do you fish a straight clear Flora this time of year? Like no red stuff, none of that?
No.
Yeah.
Me and Ben is the first one to turn us on to it, but that Yozuri top knot is phenomenal leader.
It's been awesome.
It's phenomenal leader. And I've been on like the cheap train for the last couple of years where I was fishing some mainline, Seaguar Red Label mainline, which I still trust 100%, but the way that stuff ties knots is limper. It's just that Yozuri top knot is killer stuff.
If you want to spend some money, you can go to like the Seaguar Gold Label, especially this time of year. I mean, I'm joking, but at the same time, for real, because it's like thinner diameter.
Crazy.
If you want to go down to really get serious, those fish can see some line in that clear water. So
Yeah.
Are y'all carrying that AFCO leader yet?
I've Stack's gonna kill me because he's bugging me about it. And I keep meaning to order it, but we've been so sidetracked. So we've been meaning to get it. But he did give me some.
I've been playing with it. It's
He did give me some. Yeah, it's sweet. I like the spools.
Yeah,
that's my favorite thing about it.
I didn't even see it yet.
Cool. I've been fishing mainline too.
The Red Label?
Not the Red Label, but the blue Seaguar.
Oh,
Maybe it's not blue. I don't know which one it is.
Is it Invisex?
It might be Invisex.
Or Abrazex or one of those?
I can't remember what it is. But I've broken 2 fish off on the hook set on brand new leader with that. And so that's one of the things that with a soft rod, man, and I need to
I've heard bad things about see, this is one of those things like I can't remember if they make 2. They make Invisex and Abrazex, and I can't remember which one, but I've heard very similar stories about people breaking fish off on it. I mean, like that Berkeley Vanish stuff is garbage.
I'll never use. You used to use that.
Yeah,
and
we
I'll
tried
go back
it.
to you used
Barfley.
it. And we were fishing Greenfield Lake, and I bought
that's
some.
why I never bought it again.
I'm hooking what I imagine I was a good fish, and I broke off with your
Twice.
janky leader.
It was sitting in my boat that could have been sun damage too.
That'd be a great name for a leader company, Janky Leader. Are you fishing that new Janky 15? I'm just always trying to be funny.
I like it.
Making everything a joke.
Yeah, leader's important though.
But for reds, I don't think as much.
I would say if I was red fishing,
dumbing it down though, like in the summer you can fish 25. I fish 15.
Well, even dock fishing this time of year, you can dumb it down because those fish are so cold they don't fight as hard, and they especially with pressure, can get difficult to catch. So dock fishing, I'll usually summertime I'm minimum 20, most of the time closer to 25, 30 most of the time, but this time of year you can go 15.
Yeah.
You know what rod I fished the other day for a second that I really liked? Ray's good friend. He's a charter captain as well. Mike. He's got the yellow Lake and Bay. What's his last name? Mike Opelgard?
Mike Opelgard.
I
fished with him this fall. He's a really nice guy.
Super cool dude. We're going to have him on the show soon. But he had the TFO trout panfish rod.
Yeah,
oh
it's
my
a cool
gosh,
little rod.
That's a sweet
He was fishing that
rod.
the whole day that I fished with him.
Was he?
That one.
It's a cool rod. It's soft. I mean, it's like old school. But
he fishes like 8th ounce or 8th or 16th ounce jigs on it.
Well, yeah, we were talking about light.
Yeah, it's a cool little rod.
Yeah, you could just tie the lightest soft plastic by the tail, like no hook on it, and you could probably throw it 75 yards with that thing. You can throw
Probably feel it the whole time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, do y'all have any closing thoughts? We're at an hour actually already. So any other closing thoughts where you're like, this is something I want to share about cold water fishing or
I mean, it's redundant. We've talked about it the whole time. Natural stuff, light and slow. It's from my go-tos.
Yeah.
I think a point that you that I didn't bring up that you brought up that a lot of people don't think about is thinking about what your bait's doing.
Yeah.
Like you're not just out there throwing a bait and it's going to get bit. Like you have to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, and also too, something else to think about is think about, like Cameron said, your weather. Look for, I think Judd might mention it too, the opposite. Look for those warmer days consecutively. Know where your fish are going to be, and they might go into some shallower water to warm up. Look for your muddy bottoms. That's going to hold more heat. They're not going to, obviously when that sun comes out, they're going to be on that warmer, that mud.
Yeah, for sure.
Warming up, and go middle of the day versus first thing in the morning. Don't go first thing in the morning.
You can be lazy this time of year.
Sleep in. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does not pay off to go early.
No, this time of year, it
just freeze your
doesn't.
butt off.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's one of those warming trend days, you can probably catch it in the morning.
Yeah,
but
especially if you had a couple days like that.
I think it's I don't know for sure, but maybe think like a 3-degree water climb. Like if you get 3, if it's sitting at 50, and then in
It's
2 days
52.
it's 53, 54, they're going to bite
Well,
probably.
I got a good example today. We've got live shrimp at the shop, and they're very sensitive to the cold.
They are.
We
a pain in the
usually
ass.
have heaters. We have heaters to
Adjust.
salt or whatever
make them
fish
comfortable.
tank heaters. Well, they die if it gets too cold. So today I went out there and we forgot to plug the heaters in. So they were laying on their sides and they do a kick thing. They don't really
like when a
move.
dog's dreaming and sleeping.
Yeah. So about midday, I plugged the heaters in. We remember to plug the heaters in. They probably weren't plugged in and they're not super strong heaters. They weren't plugged in for probably 30 minutes and went back out there. So the water temperature may have changed a couple degrees at the most, and they were back to life. So
Wow.
you
That's
can think
cool.
of the same thing, like a
Yeah.
warm day.
Yeah.
Also, shrimp
I
are
need to
stupid,
get some of those for the
and when you
creeks.
put the heaters in there, they will climb on top of them and cook themselves.
It's probably because they're suicidal at this point. They're tired of being in the bait tank. They're like, we talk about like the South part. We're like, do you remember the river?
They're people are
Remember the river? I remember the river.
remember when you were young in the river?
Remember we were in these bait tanks?
Man, those were the days. Y'all should start marketing and selling dock heaters for the winter, like with your dock lights.
Like, create a warm spot.
Yeah, for real. But
Like
get a dock
mats
light
for the bottom of
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you got there at night and they're stacked. Redfish, everything's laying on top.
But
of
you got to think, I mean, there's natural, like we said, natural resources. Do
Yeah.
the same thing.
mud bottom.
Yeah.
Bottom.
Yep.
Or just do what Judd said. Get you about 20 heaters from PetSmart.
Yeah, just run your electrical bill through the roof.
Oh man, Ryan, you got anything to leave us with?
I think we're good,
Parting
man. I
words
think
on?
I got a story about Ryan real quick. I want to
Okay. You better hurry it up because I got a tinkle. I'm just kidding. I
We're
can
just
hold it.
I don't. It might have been 2 years ago. So I think I was talking to Judd, and he was like, "Dude, Ryan caught a monster trout." And I was like, "Oh man, I gotta see this thing. He surely has like some pictures or something." So I go into the shop, and I'm like, "Ryan, heard you caught a huge trout, man." And he's like, "Yeah, you want to see it?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, come back here." I'm like, "Come back where?" He's like, "To the freezer." And he's like, "I froze it."
It's still there.
It is still there.
I asked him to look at it the other day.
later, and he shows it to me. Dude, the thing is a monster.
He's trying to do the new taxidermy. It's called Han Solo taxidermy.
If I leave it there long enough, it'll freeze dry itself.
Freeze it in carbon.
Yeah,
You're gonna clone it one day.
yeah.
Oh man, that'd be cool.
Clone numerous ones and release them into the wild.
Every couple months, I'm like, when Ryan's at the shop, I'm like, "Hey, is that trout still in there? Let's go look at it." And we'll go out
I
there
do
and
the
look at
same
it.
thing. Yeah.
I'm like, one day, and just hold it up.
One day.
Well, that thing was just weird. It's so fat.
Well, how
That's
was
the
he again?
craziest
Weirdest
part
thing
of it.
about his head is so small, and then it's like. just like it
Actually,
explodes
Ryan's
in the
been
body.
growing that trout in his apartment in his bathtub for 5 years. That's why it was genetically kind of weird.
Yeah,
The truth comes out.
yeah. I cheated.
Truth comes out.
Well, I think that's going to be our show, guys. Thank you all so much for checking out the show. We'll be back to a normal routine doing live shows after into the new year. So, like I said, I think this was episode 28. Merry Christmas to all of y'all that didn't hear it at the beginning of the show. But Merry Christmas, and we will see y'all on the next one. Later.
Peace.